The next object we want to bring in is an image. So if I go over to my editor, I have Image tab, and you'll notice that I have the ability to open up an image. And by default, I have access to all of my gobos that are currently patched in my file. So in my gobo library, I'm going to pick my fracture gobo. So that will bring that object into my image library. And now, just like the other libraries that I've used, I can click to pick it up and then drop it in my workspace. And with that in there, I'm going to zoom out a little bit because I want to make this guy just a little bit bigger. Move him down. And I want this object to be beam palette 5. And that's going to allow me to click on that object, and it will actually put in the gobo that I'm showing here. The last tab in our object library allows us to control some of the settings of the magic sheet. And one of the properties that we can change is what the background state is. So you have the option of a solid color, a gradient, or the ability to import an image. Oftentimes people will import the image of a ground plan for a set and allow that to be their background. And that way they can put their magic sheet objects like fixtures and groups over top of it. For today, I'm going to select a gradient. And if I click on my first color here, I can pick my top color. I'm going to do something a little muted. So how about a really dark blue? And then I have my bottom color that I can pick here. And I'm going to do it a black. You'll notice you can also pick a background for when the tab is in blind, and you have the ability to select which background you're using while you're editing your magic sheet. So to finish up this magic sheet, I'm going to add some other objects. I want to grab a color palette. Drop that in, make it a little bit bigger. And I want this color palette to just have label as a field. So I'm going to hide my field 2, and in field 1, I'm going to set it to be label. And I'm going to change my font size to 20 for today. One of the great things about color palettes is if I come up to my color fill and I link it to channel color, when I go back out into live, just like a channel, it's going to show the color that's stored in that color palette. And we use the color that's in the highest channel number of that color palette. So I'm going to create an array of these guys. And I just want a row. So I'm going to give myself 7 columns and 1 row. And I'm actually going to spread the spacing out to be 25 to give myself a little bit more room. I'll hit OK. And those all get added for me. Next, to fill in my magic sheet, I'm going to add some focus palettes. So I'm just going to take a square object here and drop that in, stretch it a little bit. This will represent the boxes that my band is standing on. So I'm also going to rotate that just a little bit to meet the guitar person. And I want to make sure that my target says focus palette. And this is focus palette 1. And for fields, I'm going to tell this guy to give me the target name first, then the target ID, and finally the label. So this will tell me what focus palette that is. And just like before, I'm going to Control C to copy this object, and then Control V to paste it. And I've got 5 focus palettes that I'm building. So I'm just going to paste those all in, and then drag them to where I want them. Maybe change some of their sizes a little bit, and just like that. When we were learning about direct selects, we saw that we could apply icons to certain targets and allow them to be seen in our direct selects. We can also apply them here in our magic sheets. So I'm going to quickly go grab all of our groups, and I'm going to come down to field 4 for all of those. And I'm going to select icon. You'll see that those sort of show up there. So you can see that when I close the editor, the icons that I set up in my group list are now displaying as fields on my objects. I'm going to open the editor back up. So we can change some properties of the icon. If we want to change where it aligns, just like any other field, we can use our checkerboard to pick left or right, bottom or top. I'm going to leave it center for now. And also, if we want to change the size of that icon, if we change the size in font to 50, that is going to make that icon larger. So if I close my editor, we now have larger arrows. We currently only see 2 of these icons. If I were to go back to my group list and add icons to the additional groups that are displayed here, because I used icon as a field, those will show up whenever I add them. One of the other things we can do is insert custom images. So if I bring an image in on a thumb drive, I can put that into the console. And if I come up to my library again and open my image library, I can find my thumb drive, and on there, if I have an image, grab it, it'll import it in, and just like we did with our gobo, I'll just click on it, bring it in, and then I can resize that and point it to be any object that I want. Now that I've done that, that object lives as part of the show file, so I can remove my thumb drive and know that that image saves with the show file. Finally, I'm going to add a couple of console buttons. So I'm going to come back in here, grab a square, drop that in, make it a bit bigger. And one of the options that I have in my property editor is as target, near the bottom I can actually select console button. And now this drop down below console button opens up for me. And what I'm able to do is select from all of the different buttons or commands that are in the console. So I want to go ahead and find full. And so if my field is set to target ID, it's going to show me the button number, which isn't particularly useful. So instead of target ID, I want it to say target name, and that's actually going to give me the name of my button. I'm going to make 2 other console buttons today. So again, I'm going to Control-C and Control-V that object twice. And I want to make my bottom button say enter. And I want my middle button to be remdim. These will work exactly the same as the console face panel buttons, except now I don't have to move my hand away from the touchscreen and all the way back down to the keypad. When I'm all done, I can close my editor and we can start to play with our magic sheet. You'll notice immediately that my group labels show up. All of my focus palette labels show up. 101 through 105 are dark because they're not lit up, and my color palettes automatically take the color that's stored in them. So we can do a quick example. I'm going to use group 5 as my front of house movers, and it will select those for me. I can say full enter, and those lights will come on just as expected. And as I change the color of those fixtures, you'll notice that the color of my magic sheet objects change as well. And I can use my focus palettes to get those up on the main singer. So what we've built is a really functional programming magic sheet.